Hello and welcome to Off the Beaten Tracks. Today, Pat and I will be discussing the 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus by Spirit, a classic album. We'll be discussing what we think of it and some interesting factoids you may not know. Stay tuned and find out. Okay, we are back today with another chat with Pat, and today we're going to be doing her choice of an album. It is Spirit's The 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus, and this is one of her favorites, and take it away, Pat.
Well, yeah, 12 Dreams, Spirit. I fell in love with this album. I first heard it actually the year it was released, which was 1970, and the whole album just blew me away. The drummer, Ed Cassidy, is an old jazz drummer. He's been drumming since 1938. He's the eldest in the band. Actually, the lead singer, Randy California, Cass is his, as he was called, is his stepdad. Spirit had albums prior to this, but it was 12 Dreams that really turned me on to them. And it's just a lot of the songs are very relevant to today. Mr. Skin, Zoo, Nature's Way, all very applicable then and now. Psychedelia, rock, it's actually my all-time favorite album. It's probably number one on my list of 1 to 10. I love it. What did you think of it?
Well, I like the album. I hadn't listened to the album until this week when we discussed doing it. It was one of those albums that always made it onto the turntable when I was in high school in the 70s. And it was, obviously those songs stick out, Nature's Way, Animal Farm, they just cut through the noise at a party and they catch your ear. They're just terrific songs. I love this album. I listened to it a number of times. I have a few factoids. Do you know how Randy California got his name?
I do, and I can't remember. Somebody gave it to him.
Yes,
and I think it was Jimi Hendrix.
Is Randy Wolf. I think Randy Craig Wolf or something. But he was playing in Jimi Hendrix backup band before Spirit.
Yep.
And Jimmy had 2 guys in the band named Randy. So he called one Randy Texas, and he called our Randy California, because that's where he was from, and the name stuck. I thought that was a fascinating piece of information. And now Cassidy, you were right. He was 20 years older and had played with guys like Cannonball Adderley, Jerry Mulligan, and Thelonious Monk. So he was a major player. I mean, he could really play those drums at a time, where probably drumming in 1970 wasn't up to that kind of standard. I mean, and interestingly, because this is obviously their best album, it was their poorest selling album of the first 4. And it spent only 14 weeks on the charts. Their first album spent 7 months on the charts. Now, eventually, because this is obviously a stone cold classic, this one is their best-selling album historically now, because it sells all the time. It's the big catalog one, where the others, they probably sell, but this is the one. So this is their best-selling album, but at the time it was their least-selling album. It was produced by David Briggs from Neil Young's longtime producer. And I think we can both agree that this was the high point. And the band collapsed after this. When they were on tour, basically what happened was there was this huge infight between Randy California and Jay Ferguson. Mm-hmm. And their last concert together, they were almost in a fist fight. And Jay and Mark Andes, who wrote Space Child, and they left to form JoJo Gunn, which has any number of albums. And to make matters worse, Randy California falls off a horse and has severe head injuries, so he can't tour. So now there's only 2 guys left. There's the keyboard player and Ed Cassidy in the band. Right. So he brings in other people to play. Right. And they put out another album called Reach while Randy's still recovering. And then they have a big argument. And then Ed and the keyboard player leave. So the only band left is guys who were never in the band.
Right. The album that they brought out after 12 Dreams was it was Alistair Healy that joined them as a bass player, and he became their primary songwriter and lead singer. And then his brother, his baby brother, John Staheli, joined them, and they did an album called Feedback. And the hit off that one was Cadillac Cowboys. And when I saw Spirit at that time, Ed Cassidy was still with them,
Mhm.
and John Locke was still with them. They were on tour, and then, and of course, I didn't realize at the time that the whole band had fallen apart. So you get the Staheli brothers, but I did get them to sign my album.
Ah, excellent.
So two other stories behind that most people don't know. First of all, John Locke and I shared the same birthday. I actually got to meet and chat with these guys. He was September 25th. Unfortunately, he passed away many years ago. But I'm going to hold this up because this is the back of the album. And that is, as John has written here, that is me lying drunk in the bottom of my pool in Topanga Canyon. That's one. The second one is what he told me is the Dr. Sardonicus is also, I believe, a book or a movie or something. But the album came from the synthesizer, what they termed a computer. This is 1969 when they were recording it, that created a lot of the sounds and the feedback and stuff that you hear, the sort of the psychedelia in it. They called that computer Dr. Sardonicus.
Oh.
And that's where the 12
There
dreams,
were
the 12
those big
songs.
complicated Moogie things
Yep.
that Wendy Carlos used to play, and you used to have
Yes.
you used to have to plug things in like those old telephone
Telephone things.
Yeah.
Yes. Keith Emerson style
Guitar
sort
shit.
of thing.
Yeah. Weird
Yep.
keyboard stuff.
And John was the one that had to learn how to, he was the keyboard guy. He was the one that had to learn how to use that behemoth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing
So anyways,
stuff.
yeah.
So what would you give this album?
Oh, it's a 10.
I would give it a 9. I think
Okay.
this first side is a 10. I think the second side is probably an 8, 8.5. I think the second side isn't quite as good as the first side because the first side's so brilliant. And to be a 10, it has to be, just unrelentingly brilliant. So I would give this probably a 9, 9.25, I think, because the second side isn't quite up to the first side.
What was the first song that grabbed you?
Well, the second song is Nature's Way, and that has to. But the first song I really like too, which is an interesting song because it's I guess an ode to polygamy, right? It's about a woman being married to 2 guys. There was a movie with Clint Eastwood about him and what's his face sharing a woman.
No.
Musical, I don't remember. So yeah, so I mean that I even like Space Child. I thought Space Child was a really good instrumental. Mr. Skin.
Yes.
Is
that's
a
what they
note
used to
to
call him.
Ed's head,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Bald.
Yes, yes.
Totally. Looks good on him.
So the cover.
Think of the
So the
cover.
cover, what would you give the cover?
Oh, well, the cover, it's actually, it's not just the cover. It's a double. It's a double. So it's the cover and then it's the inside with all of them there. Done through mirrors, actually. These were done through one of those circus mirrors.
Oh yeah.
And because it's 1970, because it's not psychedelia, the logo, the picture on front, I would give it a 10. I think it matches what's going on inside the album, especially with the use of the synthesizer.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I love it.
Number one, I would probably give this about a 7. Number one, because it's so hard to keep clean. Every copy of this you see is filthy because of that white border. Now, I was wondering, and you're the visual person, would it have been more startling if the picture within the frame was the full album cover to give it even more of a Sardonicus kind of thing and maybe just put the title in white at the bottom?
It's hard to, when I look at the inside of it,
mm-hmm.
like if you look at something like this, like the inside is all black.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm just saying
there
that
as well.
The entire thing was
yeah, it probably, yeah, you're probably right. It would have had more impact had they put the 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus in white up top with Spirit and let the album cover black. Yeah, you're right. because it does get filthy. And I happen to own 2 copies of these.
Mhm.
Of course, this one is battered and bruised and falling apart, but it's signed. So we keep that one, and I have another one that doesn't come out of its package.
So you would give that a 10. I would give it, because of hygiene and other reasons, probably a 7, 7.5.
Okay.
And we're very close on the other. You're a 10.
Mhm.
I'm a 9, 9.5.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add one more thing on Ed. Those two, what he was really well known for in spirit was not just his drumming skills and his age, or that he was Randy California's stepdad, but those 2 huge drums on either side of him are called what he called field drums. And they are like 2 huge, I can't even remember what the measurements were that he told me. I mean, a big kick drum in a normal rock band is about 24 inches, and those things were at least almost twice that size. And that's the beginning of Nature's Way. Those are the drums that are used, and they really are, when you see them live, they're hugely powerful. But
I
he
can
was well
imagine
known for
with
those
his
drums.
drumming prowess that
Yeah.
he would be a good part of the show and live, considering he's a jazz and a rock music, lived to be 89.
Yes, he
Fine
did.
age for especially a drummer who, you know, are prone to spontaneous combustion.
And he was playing right up until he passed away as well.
Yeah. So there you have it. We will be back with another album review probably later in the week, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye from me. And goodbye.
And goodbye from me.